Hello, welcome to the Millionaire Woman Show, where we'll be discussing leadership, business, and human potential, inspiring you to live rich from the inside out. Unlock your creativity, stretch out of your comfort zone, break through your barriers, take inspired action, and achieve epic results. Now, here's your host, two-time best-selling author, speaker, and certified executive coach, Deborah Kasowski.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Millionaire Woman Show, where we talk about leadership, business, and human potential. And I am super excited. I have a long-awaited guest on the show, Adam Urbanski, known as the Millionaire Marketing Mentor. Adam Urbanski is the go-to guy for coaches, consultants, and other successful service professionals who want to attract more clients, convert high-value sales, build an authority brand, and grow a lifestyle business that makes a bigger impact while generating more income. His clients and students often double, triple, and even 10x their business, some in as little as 90 days. Adam started out with only $194 and a limited ability to speak English, but was able to build and sell his first seven-figure business in less than 10 years. Today, Adam influences over 100,000 coaches, consultants, speakers, experts, online marketers, entrepreneurs worldwide, teaching them how to transform their limiting, time-intensive businesses into automated money-making machines that attract clients like crazy. Now, who doesn't want to do that? I'm so excited. So what is it? Is it that you came as an immigrant to the U.S., that you had that drive behind you just to build the better life? Because often when I talk to people who've come from another country, they work sometimes a lot harder than people who were born here.
You know, I think that's part of it, but I've got to thank you for this intro, and I've got to rewrite this because there is so much hype in there. I don't even believe it myself anymore. But I appreciate you going through it. You know, I know you had Camila Gornia, and
Yes.
I've never met her. Our mutual friend, Nicole Holland, has mentioned her. And I listened to part of the episode that you had with her, and she talked about the immigrant mindset. And I think it's absolutely right. You know, I never talk about it actually, very rarely. Just recently it came up in a couple of conversations where, you know, people would ask me in the past, do you wish, and I just came back from 3 weeks in Europe. So it's kind of fresh on my mind. And people always ask, well, do you wish you lived there? I'm like, you know, I've made my home here and I have no regrets. It's like, once I committed to this, I went full in. I enjoy trips. I enjoy being in all different places in the world. But, you know, whenever you make it home, it's kind of like in business. If you make a decision, go through with it fully. Don't kind of hoe and hum. Don't look for a back door. Like, once you decide on something, go for it. But I think the fact that, you know, I was 18. I had nothing. I had a high school degree. I just graduated from high school. I had $194 in my pocket. I didn't actually speak English very well, like almost not at all. I could say a few sentences. And when someone talked back to me, I had no idea what they were saying. So I think that kind of beginning set me up for a platform where I had nothing to lose. Like, I didn't, you know, it doesn't matter what I wanted to try because I had only up to go.
Yeah.
Couldn't get any worse.
And I think it's not just like the immigrant mindset, but I think when we think of business owners or people who are even trying to climb the corporate ladder, they have to have that drive or hunger. And I like how you said, you know, I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And if we can just talk about mindset for a moment, that what holds people back from going after and charging, you know, moving from the hourly fees to creating packages so that they can charge more, work less, but still serve a huger population of people.
Yeah.
What do you think holds people back from jumping in? Like, you know, you're talking about that commitment and that drive and hunger.
You know, it's really an interesting question because, again, I just talked about it at my last live event where for years I would observe this phenomena where people would talk about confidence issues. And, you know, again, coming from a communist country, I would be thinking like, what's with this confidence thing? Just go out there and do things. But then I realized something. The more successful you get, when you want to pivot, when you want to change things, most of us are wired for scarcity rather than abundance. So let's say this, when we hit $1 million, most people don't think, great, how do I make another million? Most people think, okay, what do I do not to lose my million? So what happens when they get to a certain level of success? What starts happening? They start doubting themselves. What if it was a fluke? What if I can't repeat it? I better not mess with anything, because if I change what's working, what if it doesn't work at all and I don't know how to fix it? And this lack of confidence kicks in. And sometimes, people get to a certain level of success, and they worked very hard, but they still have like this, this ping of doubt. I call it the fraud factor. They go like, well, who am I? There are people that have bigger lists, better names, they're better looking, they have fancier websites, they've got degrees, they wrote books, and who the heck am I? And they start doubting, can I really charge this much? Am I really making that much of an impact? And all of that just creeps up. And the more people start comparing themselves, and the more they start thinking about everything they don't have, the more they start believing it's true.
So what do you think that people need to start doing?
I think man, I don't like this immigrant mindset, but you've got to kind of step into this. I've got nothing to lose. I've got really nothing to lose. And if you've created a certain level of success, believe me, you didn't get there by accident. You probably got there by a lot of strategy, a lot of hard work. You can repeat that. So to me, it's really, number one, decide. I call it my C factor. Decide what do you want to do. So it's have absolute clarity. What kills people is kind of hoeing and humming. Well, I want to do this, but this actually looks good. And what about that strategy? And if you start getting confused between all sorts of different goals and aspirations and strategies, it's a killer, because it paralyzes you. You analyze, and can't move. So decide on one strategy, one direction, have that absolute clarity. And then what that gives you is, once you clearly know where you want to go, you can clearly decide what skills you want to develop. So the second step is capability, right? And whether it's personal capability, like you need to acquire new skill sets. And for all entrepreneurs, that's a never-ending journey, right? You start a business, you know how to do something, but then you need to know how to acquire a client. Then you need to know how to do some of the business growth and leadership and visioning. And then you need to know how to hire and fire. Then you need to know how to be a leader to your team. You constantly growing. So what's the next goal? What's the skill? What's the capacity or capability you have to develop? And then the next thing is this capacity, which kind of goes into confidence. And to me, capacity gets built up with wins. And wins only happen as you take action. So when you start taking small action, start creating small wins, you start building this inner drive and a confidence, going like, wow, this is really happening. I can do this. And you get, bolder and more bodacious in your pursuit of your goals.
Yeah. So it's through action, definitely, that you're
Absolutely.
really going to start getting some of those results, and
Yep.
that drive and hunger from within. So what is it about shifting from that hourly rate to the value-based offers, the high-end offers? How do people shift from that place? I know it's not just mindset, but also that value piece, because they want to build packages, but how do they demonstrate value at the same time?
Deborah, it's a really great question. And I am kind of a devil's advocate in everything that I do. So I like to debunk certain myths. When you think about hourly pricing versus value-based pricing, funny enough, value-based pricing will still translate to hours for most people. For most people that sell services and they're still involved in delivering what they've sold, it ultimately still comes back to an hourly rate. But it's just like, how do you go from a $200 an hour rate to a $5,000 an hour rate? And, it's all about this repackaging of your services, but it's also about, the answer is actually in the question. When you start shifting from a transaction to a transformation. So, Deborah, if I want to, let's say that you didn't know jack about podcasts, which, by the way, it's reversed. I don't know jack about podcasts. You probably know a lot. But let's say, Deborah, you wanted to learn about podcasts. And I said, look, I'm going to teach you all there is about podcasts. It's going to take me 3 hours, and I'm going to charge you $200 an hour. You're kind of like, okay, well, whatever. But then I'll start, what if I shifted it? I said, look, Deborah, if you develop really successful podcasts, what's that podcast worth to you on an annual basis? What can it do for you in terms of visibility, credibility, acquiring clients? Getting exposure to different markets, getting asked to speak on bigger stages, landing much more lucrative deals. Can you translate that in dollars and cents? And it's probably worth tens of thousands of dollars to you on annual basis. And now say, look, how long are you going to be doing this? 3, 4, 5 years. Let's just say 5 years. And let's say that it's worth to you $50,000 a year. That's $250,000 value. Would you be willing to invest $25,000 to get there? Right? Now, it can still take me 3 hours to set it up. Nothing has changed. But instead of going, I'm going to take 3 hours and do something, we talk about transformation rather than transaction. Mm-hmm. So that's very important component. Another component of shifting from low hourly to high hourly, or just purely hourly to actually packages, is understanding your audience. Like, look, well, let's just go with the same example of podcasting, right? Sure. You are an established, successful entrepreneur. I don't know you. I don't know much about your business. I probably should have done more studying, but I'm imagining you're very successful, right? So podcast has a high value to you in terms of generating more revenue, or possibility to generate more revenue, right? Now, if I talk to someone who just decided to start in their own business, right? They don't even know what the heck they're selling yet, and they want to start a podcast. Well, podcast has a lot of value to them, but much less value than it has to you, and they have much less capability to actually make investments. So sometimes shifting how much you charge has most to do with who you sell to and less to do with what you actually sell.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Total sense. So what is the difference between having a marketing strategy and a marketing tactic?
How much time do we have?
As much as you want, Adam. It's all yours.
Oh, boy. So, that is the reason I ask how much time we have, because it's kind of funny, because tactic can turn into a strategy, and strategy can turn into a tactic, and you can get into scientific and academic definitions. But I think the way you have to look at it is this. Strategy is knowing what you want to do. It's the big picture. It's the clarity. And tactic, it's about how you're going to get there. How are you going to make it happen? So, for example, strategy could be, I want to build $1 million coaching business. And I want to coach, and the strategies, I want to build $1 million coaching business by coaching other entrepreneurs, right? And I want to, and part of strategy, again, is I want to do it by hosting a high-level mastermind where people come in and invest $25,000. And I want to have 40 of those clients pay me $25,000 every year. That's my $1 million business. Now the question is, how are you going to get there? So I say, well, you know what? One way to get in front of those people is to write a book. Then book becomes a tactic. Another one of those strategies is, well, you know what? I'm going to host a podcast. So the podcast becomes a tactic. But at the same time, writing a book itself can be a strategy when that's the goal. And then how you market the book and all the little steps, those become tactics. But what's really important that today, most things people learn on internet is tactical. And one of the big distinctions that you can easily spot is tactic between strategy. If you have to take a lot of time to learn a lot of how-tos, most likely you're learning very tactical information. And strategy can be gotten in a moment. Like, look, I just talked about $1 million business, 40, $25,000 clients. That is a strategy. Did you need to go to school to figure it out? No. Did you need to learn a lot of how-tos? No. You instantly got it, and you now have a direction to go. Now you can start figuring out, what do I need to learn? What kind of tactics do I need to deploy to make that happen? But strategy can be grasped and nearly mastered at an instant, versus tactics, then it'll take a lot of time.
See, and people get stuck on the tactics because they're like, well, I don't know how to do this.
Yep.
But I like,
and then they start comparing themselves, then they start learning and tactics can be very, very profitable. But what you have to realize that usually who teaches you the tactic is someone that's invested the last 3-5 years learning that tactic, practicing it, failing at it, trying it again, perfecting it. And then they go, well, look, I can make $1 million in the weekend by hosting a seminar. Well, great. I want to do the same thing. Well, realize this. They've taken 10 years to build a list, master the message, knowing how to sell from the stage. And you just started your business. You have no list. You have no following. There is no way on earth that you're going to make $1 million in the weekend. the way they would have done it. But it's so exciting because you go like, wow, look, they're doing it. I'm going to do the same thing. No, they're in a different place than you might be.
Yeah. So, and how do they not get discouraged from stepping into that space? Like building the list. Sometimes that can be a daunting thing because people are like, oh, some people don't want to get emails because they just feel like they get so much. What would you tell them?
So again, it depends on where you are in your business and in your life. But generally, I would say this: decide on what you want, figure out what do you need to figure out to get there, and then cut out everything else. So I'll give just personal examples. I don't watch news. I actually don't. I own TV sets and I watch stuff on TV sets, but I don't own any access to TV channels. I don't watch news. It's a total waste of time. Whatever is happening out there, you will learn about it very quickly through other media, but watching kind of a ratings craving news channel, ratings hungry news channels, it's very sensationalized stuff. It just occupies your time. There's nothing you can do about it in the moment. And it also has very, very, very little impact on you, at least immediately. Long term, that's a different story, but you're going to have plenty of time to adjust and shift. So number one, don't watch news. Number two, don't compare yourself by this. It's the same strategy. Don't compare yourself to other people. In comparison, you will always lose. Someone is always, taller, thinner, has more hair, is more eloquent in how they talk, has sexier accent, whatever. You will always lose in comparison. So don't compare yourself. Again, figure out what I want to do and then do what you can with what you've got. Just start working towards it. I talk about talking the walk. And it's kind of, I always get confused in my own message because it's the reverse. Most people say, oh, look, this person is really walking the talk, right? What it means is that they've been talking about something and now eventually they started doing it. That's almost like they fake it till you make it principle. Mm-hmm. And I always say, do it in reverse. Look at what are some of the things you've accomplished, even if they're very small things, like you've built half a dozen opt-in pages and they're very good. They convert very well and they're good looking and you learn a lot about opt-in pages. Well, you know what? Start talking the walk. Start talking about how to build high converting landing pages. And before you know it, you're going to build authority and expertise and credibility and recognition on a little sliver of the market. And before you know it, even though it seems like such a small thing, but because you started by talking your walk, talking about something you've done in the past, you have confidence, you have credibility, you are believable, and it starts taking off. And before you know it, other experts will start featuring you and mentioning you as a credible source of information on that particular topic. That to me is the way to start, position, accelerate, and eventually scale your business.
And who doesn't want to do that?
Exactly.
It's all about growing it. So how can someone start out from a quick position themselves as a thought leader in the market? I know you talked about having a book. We talked about a podcast. What are some other ways that people can position themselves?
Yeah, to me, it actually is this, what I just mentioned, talk the walk is one of the fastest way. I'll show you this. I had a client, this is now a while back, when Facebook was still a little newer than what it is today, but I would imagine that the same approach would work phenomenally well today. So she started out with me and said, look, I want to be a business consultant. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. We ran a very successful business as a family. I was a big part of it. I know a lot about building, growing, managing businesses. Well, great. The only problem is that, business consultants are a dime a dozen. There's just so many of them. Like, what makes you different? What makes you unique? How are you going to stand out in the crowd? And kind of hoeing and humming, and she shared that she invested a lot of money in learning about social media, and in particular, Facebook. I'm like, why don't you just go into that little niche? Let's figure out something that's working for you on Facebook, and let's do that. And she was like, no, it's too small. There's somebody, and by the time we were having those conversations, there were already Facebook experts, popping up everywhere as well. And then she came and said, look, in the last 30 days, I just added 1,000 fans to my fan page, which back then were kind of new. And I spent 10 minutes a day doing this, zero money on any type of advertising. And in 1 month, I went from just 0 to over 1,000 fans. And I said, you know what? That is your market. That is your niche. Why don't you just start teaching exactly how you did it? Go back, reverse engineer what you did, and just do a class on that. You know, how I added 1,000 plus fans in 30 days, under 10 minutes a day with zero money on advertising. Look how small it is, how specific it is, right? Said, no. I got to tell you, she was fighting for about 3 months on this and finally did it. And then 3 months later, she was everywhere. She was interviewed on all the podcasts and all at summits and invited to speak on stages. And it went from a 1 hour teleclass to a half-day workshop, to a 1-day consulting day, to a 3-day seminar, to a year-long coaching program. All started because she figured out one small thing and then build upon it.
Very cool. And, you know, people think it takes a lot of time, but 10 minutes a day, who can't do that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why it was so specific. You know, when you think about the title, it really addressed all the possible things, right? The title itself was actually pretty cool because who doesn't want to add extra? I mean, people have fan pages even today for even years, and they still don't have 1,000 fans. So that's still a very popular message when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Another thing people don't have is a lot of money on advertising. So without spending money on advertising, that speaks to one of the restrictions that people think, well, I don't want to spend money on it. And then, like you mentioned, everybody is starved for time. So when you say, you know, do it under 10 minutes a day, it's like, wow, I can figure out how to get 10 minutes a day to focus on something. So the title itself actually is a pretty cool template, how to structure messages that get attention.
Yeah. Well, it grabbed my attention because 10 minutes a day, who can not fit that in? I'm really curious because here you have a fan list. And how would someone take that list? Because list building is really important to start building that list building machine that takes some people from that list and also gets them on their email list.
Again, how much time do we have?
Personally?
Yeah, let's do some shortcuts on this, all right? Because I talk about, you know, how can you build a list building machine in a single afternoon, and most folks make it way too complicated. So let's just say that, you know, we use the same example, all right? Now a person has a fan page with 1,000 fans, but they have 0 people on the list. So you want to start converting those people from fans to subscribers, which, by the way, today is critical. And, you know, unless you deal with some very obscure topics, chances are a large population of your audience is on social media and specifically on Facebook. So a lot of your strategies should be really based on kind of a 4-pronged Facebook approach. Number one is your, actually, it should be 5 things. Number one is your personal profile. Everybody must have it if you want to be on Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2, you should really think about building what I call a secret garden. And one of those versions of secret gardens is actually a Facebook group. Some sort of theme, vision-oriented group where you become the curator of everything that's happening in the group. And it's going to build your community, your credibility, your authority. The third thing is your Facebook fan page, right? Which that gives you ability to advertise. The fourth thing is doing Facebook live videos, because video builds relationships like nothing else remotely, right? I mean, face-to-face is the number one tool, still belly-to-belly, toe-to-toe. But you can create nearly the same result by being on video. And then number 5 is actually advertising. And you can combine all of those things, your group, your Facebook fan page, your live video, and put to that a power of a little bit of leverage of money and advertising. And you've got a tremendous success recipe. But how do you turn it into a list building machine? So let's just take the same example of someone saying, look, I'm going to show you how I build a list of how I added 1,000 fans to my fan page in a month. Now, imagine this. You can go on Facebook, do a Facebook Live, and do 20-minute, 30-minute tutorial, and just talk. Look, what I just told you, the 5 steps, right? I said, look, let me show you how to turn Facebook into a marketing machine. And you've got to leverage those 5 cogs: profile, group, page, video, and advertising. And I could talk about for half an hour. And then throughout this, I could say, look, if you want to have really good templates for Facebook Live video, I just put together 5 different scripts, how to create really natural, really engaging Facebook Live tutorials. I want to give them to you for free. All you got to do is just go to my page and collect them, and and I can give people a link, right? So what happens is you teach people, you build your credibility, you build your authority, and then you entice them to collect a better way, a faster way to follow through on what you just taught them by giving them resources. That to me is one of the best ways. Another way is invite people to a Facebook group, and in your welcome message in the group, create a welcome video that offers, again, a great resource that all the group members would like to collect. And that resource is collectible by going to your website and entering the name and email.
That's fantastic. You know, and we think it's so hard because I'm sitting here, my pen's going like crazy. But there's so many strategies. And, you know, I do Facebook Live videos every Monday. What are the components of the most effective Facebook Live video? I know you already established the call to action. So you're teaching and you're going to be giving something of value. So what do you think makes the best video?
Man, this is like going from basic to advanced, you know, in terms of different steps. At the very basic, what makes a really good video is really keeping in mind your audience first and foremost. Who are they? What do they want? And then I also believe, you know, I have this strategy that I've used for a long time. It's called PET. I say you always have to pet your audience. And PET stands for polarize, entertain, and teach. And the best example of it, I always bring up Gary Vaynerchuk. And one time I heard him say, I'm going to use can you use a cuss word on your show? Not really. He said, give people good CRAP, you know?
Okay.
And he actually used SHIT word, but give people good SHIT. Now, here's where it comes. Here's where it plays. Look, it's when he says it, it's funny as heck. It polarizes people because some people will go, okay, so he cusses, not a big deal. Some people go, oh my God, he just used an S word, right?
Yeah.
It's all uptight. So he polarizes people. And then the tip itself is a teaching moment, right? So he polarized, he entertained, and he taught. So great videos do exactly the same thing. They piss some people off and other people go like, oh my God, this is pure genius. They're slightly humorous. If you make people fun, if you make people laugh, they relate to you. And people will prefer entertainment over education. So if you whip out a bunch of charts and go like, here's all the data, here's all the research, great info, probably the best info in the world, but it's boring as heck. People want to be entertained, and only marginally they want to retain one or two good tips from your message. So always keep that in mind. And then tactically, I always think, you know, look at news on TV for educational purposes, not for news, but look how they've structured news. Look at good infomercial. They come on and in the first few seconds, they said, look, today we're going to show you how to accomplish something really, really big, even if you don't have this or that. And you're going to absolutely love it and have a great time, right? And it's for such and such person. So they say, what are you going to learn? They're going to acknowledge a couple of objections right out of the gate, and they're going to tell you who it's for. So going back to my first example of the lady in the Facebook fan page, fan building, audience building example, right? If I did a Facebook Live, I said, look, I'm so excited you're watching this because today I'm going to show you a 5-step strategy to add 1,000 fans to your fan page in the next 30 days. Now, the best part, if you're a service professional, coach, consultant, expert, authority, someone who wants to make an impact, but you don't have a lot of money or a lot of time to build your audience, this is going to be perfect for you. I'm going to show you 5 strategies to add 1,000 people to your fan base this month. So stay tuned. Roll up your sleeves, let's rock and roll. So what did I just do? All right. Again, I introduced the topic, addressed some objections, addressed who it's for. And now, you know, if people watch through the scrolling videos, it will likely stop them. Now we can talk. Now I over-exaggerated a little bit for the purpose of illustration, but that's a good opening of a video.
See, and I like that because you play that devil's advocate a little bit. You play people up a little, because I've watched Gary.
Yeah.
And I know he does piss some people off.
Yeah.
But what he also does is he makes them stop and think.
Yeah.
And I like how you approach that. So what are some of your best tips for maximizing attendance and conversion and profits? Because I know webinars for you are is something that you feel is the best way to build your brand. So why webinars, and what are some of the best tips to maximize it? Because I know people are getting nervous about technology.
So, again, like I'm thinking this devil's advocate with me. It's like, it's just like dying to come out and poo-poo the whole strategy. I tend to do things when no one is doing them. And then as the market catches on, I kind of go, okay, let's do it differently or not do it at all. So today, funny enough, I actually do less webinars than I've done just a year ago or 2 years ago, because the market caught up. And, marketers tend to screw everything up. Like webinars are a tremendous tactic. And a tremendous, they build your audience, they build your visibility, they build your credibility, and they can essentially generate leads and sales all at the same time. I mean, it's like, and you don't have to leave home to do it. I mean, how magical is this, right? Yeah. But now what you have to realize is that a lot of tactics that were being taught about the webinar, like the automated webinars, stealth webinars, where you say, oh, welcome, and you're mentioning names, where the whole thing is fake. You're not even there. It's recorded. You're not even reading the names. Like, stop doing this. Whoever is teaching you this is total baloney. Don't do this kind of stuff. Be as authentic as possible. Now, can you do recorded webinars? By all means. But tell people, look, there's a very good chance you are watching a previously recorded presentation. Now, look, it's going to be just as valuable as it were live. But nevertheless, if I mention some names, it may not be you, right? I mean, it's like when you become that transparent with your audience, they all of a sudden start having different connections. Because when people, look, if you think you're fooling people, you're not, right? They know they know it's a tactic. But even if they don't consciously think that, unconsciously, it registers with them. If this person is willing to do that to hoodwink me into something, what else are they doing behind my back? Because they really don't have my best interest in mind. All they really care about is getting into my wallet, right? Mm-hmm. So stop that. And in terms of maximizing all the results, you always ask, I teach people 2 strategies and they work very, very well. Number one, you want to ask yourself, what does my audience really want? What does my audience really want, right? And just really get clear, get very specific. And then the second question you want to ask yourself, what's stopping my audience from getting it? What's stopping my audience from getting it? And those are very 2 basic questions. And then you want to ask yourself one more third question. And the third question is, if I put in front of my audience a way to overcome what's stopping them and reach their goals, why wouldn't they take me up on it?
Truth.
Right? Because what happens? Number 1 and number 2 allow you to get clear what kind of help your audience want. And the third question allows you to start getting into the head and start flashing out some possible objections, like, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't think I'm an authority yet. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't have a good enough website. I don't have a list. All of the things that people would likely not take you up on your offer. If you ask yourself that in advance, and figure it out, you can start addressing it in your training, and in your training, provide responses to the biggest objections, therefore completely eliminating them.
Yeah. And I like how you said stop it, because it gives a bad name for the industry, really. Yeah. And people like you and I, we don't want to be labeled with that label that people are like, oh, just another one of those. Yeah. It's time for the industry to change to show that we are delivering on high value content and being transformational versus the transactional, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And, if you're teaching, dog owners how to do something, you can get away with some of this stuff simply because they're not aware of it. And that's not what they want to learn. So they don't pay attention to some of those things. So they watch an automated webinar and they don't even have it. They have no idea. So, but again, don't tell them they're watching. Still, don't tell them they're watching live if it's automated, right?
Yeah.
But where it becomes really, really important is in the industry of teachers teaching teachers type of thing. Coaches coaching coaches, consultants consulting consultants. where everybody's aware of the tactics, and then you're still thinking you're hoodwinking people, and it's just ridiculous. And everybody else watching you, if they're behind you, they're thinking, well, that's the way to do it. Let's just screw people because that's how you make money.
Leading by example.
Don't do that. Yeah.
So, we have people starting at all different levels. I know when people are losing jobs, that's when we see a lot of new business owners come into the marketplace. Can you tell us that some of your experience, like starting out, financial struggles, bouncing back? How did you get yourself to where you are today?
Another great question. And I have to say that I actually truly believe that today where we are at is a large percentage of people who call themselves entrepreneurs are actually simply unemployed. And I want to say that because, hopefully that's not you who's listening to it, but maybe there's a need to awaken from that nightmare. And maybe you've got friends around you who are kind of in the days and you've got to smack them up. So a lot of today's, regardless of what your age is, if you just kind of quit your job and now you're an entrepreneur, look, you're not. All right, you're unemployed. You become an entrepreneur when you learn how to transfer resources from lower economic bracket into a higher economic bracket. You become an entrepreneur when you learn how to take a skill like making someone feel better and turn it into $100,000 a year revenue. Now you became an entrepreneur, and if you learn how to do it again and again and again, you become a serial entrepreneur. But your question was how did I get started? What was
when you got started and overcoming because you started with $194. How did you get yourself to where you are today? Like I know you've established systems and packaging, but you started somewhere. And how could those people starting right now, what are some of the things that they should be doing?
Well, so look, one of the first things I did, I drilled peepholes in people's doors. In New York, going door to door, knocking on the doors. Now, funny thing, this is now 30 years ago. All I had is a cordless drill, and I had a few of those peephole things that were costing me like 25 cents, and I would charge $5 to install one. Now, look, I got a lot of rejection, especially that I didn't speak English, and my pitch was pre-written on a piece of paper. So I would go door to door. I would knock on the door. I would step a few steps back. So when someone opens the door, I wouldn't be like in the face, scary looking good. I had long hair. I was dressed in black clothes. I was, looking at it now, I don't know how anybody let me do that. All right. Yeah. But still, check this out. I had nothing. I didn't speak the language. I was a high school graduate. I didn't have connections. I needed food. So I scrambled up, and I borrowed cordless, one of those first cordless drills. So you don't have to plug it in and just drill. All right. A drill that allowed me to drill a hole of the right size. And from a local hardware store, the little peepholes that were 25 cents a pet, those like two parts you scrunch together through the door. And again, I would look, no peephole, great. Knock on the door, ring the bell. Somebody would open, and I would just stand back and hand them a little card, like a mute. And I would say hello and send them the card, but I couldn't really articulate the offer. So the offer simply said, look, it's safer you just open a door for me, which I appreciate, but it's safer to first look who is there before you open the door. For $5, I would install that security device on your door. I mean, that's kind of unparaphrased, but that's what it said.
Brilliant.
So start with what you've got. Now, on a good day, I made pretty good money, right? I made better money on a good day using that than people who worked 8 hours, right? And it was all mine to keep at the time. But it's still, I'm just giving you one tactic that I stumbled upon that actually allowed me to feed myself. But you start, again, the biggest thing is you start with what you've got, you start doing things. All of that, those early sales skills, I didn't connect the dots until 2 decades later that it actually taught me how to sell. It taught me to be resilient to rejection. So what most people are struggling with, just taking the first step, because they're thinking, what if it's successful and I don't like it? Or what if it doesn't work? Or what if I end up going in the wrong direction? And all the what ifs. But you have to realize, I always talk about the airplane and airports. Most people don't realize that 99% of flights take off from the landing, from the tarmac at the airport in the wrong direction. And they do it because of how the airport is situated, the proximity of the city or geographical, obstacles like mountains and wind patterns in the area. 99% of the flights, they take off in the wrong direction. Why? Because that's the easiest way to take off. Once they're in the air, they do 180 and fly where they need to fly. So for most people, the secret to getting started is just getting started. Just start taking steps. Don't worry that it might be in the wrong direction. That momentum of being in action is going to allow you to identify opportunities and redirect. But just sitting there and thinking about it, it creates absolutely nothing.
Adam, I'm just amazed at all the nuggets you're sharing with us on the show. You're just phenomenal guest. I'm going to do a kind of a 360 here, because I do want to talk to you about something that I also do see as people are growing their businesses as business owners. Especially if, I don't know if they're both entrepreneurial or just one of them is. And I've noticed this more so if only one of them is in the industry growing and learning professional growth, professional development, and they lose that connection with their partner. And I know that you have exposure to a lot of people in the industry. So I'm curious as to what you have found and what you have learned about this phenomenon, because I've seen it on Facebook. There'll be times where people are excited to share their partners or spouses and friends, and then you will see a shift about a year or two down the road that connection isn't there anymore. Relationships have ended or they're strained and things like that. But I think we want to talk about the reality in being a sole business owner. You can be the lone ranger, you can be alone, but you can also have partnership and be alone.
Yeah.
Lee.
Deborah, who have you been talking to? So, wow, that really hits close to home, because, I've just celebrated 25 years of marriage. But what most people don't know behind the scenes, that it has not always been, rainbows and kittens. There were a couple of times where we nearly divorced. In fact, one time we were separated with my wife, and, I'll show you just a couple of things that I think why it's happening and maybe some tools. So, first time I used to be in the restaurant business. That was my first $1 million success. Sold at a restaurant. And at the time, I was running my restaurants. My wife was actually still working for another company. And I saw that I started my consulting business, and I said, why don't you just join me? And it's like, things seem to be going well. Why don't you just join me? And one of the big mistakes at the time, it ended up being a good blessing long term. But at the moment, it was a total disaster. I am very visionary. My wife is very security, step-by-step processes. Now, when you think startup entrepreneur, total chaos. There's no systems. Like, you throw spaghetti against the wall, hopefully something will stick, right? Versus here she comes from years as an employee. Here's my system. Here's my thing. Just, tell me what to do. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Just go do something, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm already going like, look, here's our $1 billion business. And she goes like, well, how about we going to get the first client? I'm like, screw the first client. Here's $1 billion business. So she felt unsupported, no structure. And I felt like she was, a dream killer. Like, every time I want to dream, she's like, nope. So guess what? 6 months into this process, I sat her down one morning. I said, honey, get your coffee. Let's sit down and talk. She's like, what's up? I said, you fired. That doesn't, that does not do wonders for your relationship as a husband and wife.
For sure.
But I'll tell you what I've learned. Kind of 3 things. If you do not appreciate your partner and what they bring to, unless they're totally destructive and they have destructive habits and all sorts of things, it's chances are that you have not matured enough yet to appreciate what they bring to the table. And look, when people fall in love first, it's because, they found something in that person that they really truly fell in love with, right? So you've got to reconnect to that. Like, what truly make that person so special to you? And as you mature as an individual and as a business owner, you realize that they have skill sets that you can leverage. So like for me, again, my wife is very systematic, very diligent, very step-by-step. That's a tremendous skill set that I don't possess. The stuff that she falls in love with bores the crap out of me, right? So again, it's just learning that I have different skill sets. She has different skill sets. Combined, it becomes a powerhouse. But we had to learn that when I am, building my big vision, it scares the heck out of her. And when she talks about her detail stuff, it bores the heck out of me. So we need to learn to do it in moderation and do it the right way, so we know what each other is doing without killing each other's, energy and passion. So that's number one, right? The second thing that I've realized over the years is that, people in business, at first you kind of maybe start together. You kind of think you're on the same page. And then one person starts growing faster than another. So what happens is like a hand on the clock. One is hour, one is minutes. So the best person that grows faster is the minute hand. And before you know it, they're like at 6 o'clock, right? They completely opposite. And at that point, they usually start butting heads. Because they're like, you don't understand me. You don't know what I'm doing. You're not growing. You. And it's usually the person that grew faster. Now, they're supposed to be the enlightened one. They're supposed to be the one who grew. And yet, they like pull a sledgehammer and beat up on the other person. Oh, you don't understand. You're dumb. You're not growing. You're not investing in yourself. Blah, blah, blah. Well, you forgot that at one point you were together. You were at the same spot and you loved each other. So what the heck happened, right?
Yeah.
The final thing for me, I'll share with you. I've heard a message once a long time ago, and it really stuck with me. And it had to do with being from the old country. And the message was, in the old country, things are a little bit different. I used to fixing things when they're broken rather than throwing them out. And I think that was the biggest thing for me in my relationship, going back, it's like, it's worth fixing. Let's just repair it rather than throw it out, thinking that something else will be better.
That's beautifully said.
Relationships in business.
But it's so crucial. We don't talk about it enough. I really don't think that we do. You have offered us so much today, and I'm so grateful. I want to ask you, because I know it's just totally not work related, who is your favorite Star Trek character?
Oh, my favorite, man, there are so many of them, but it probably would have to be Captain Picard, mostly because we've got the common look. I just think that the Next Generation is such a good Star Trek series, and he just played a phenomenal character. So just decision, just wisdom, and there are a couple of episodes that just absolutely floor me every time I rewatch them or watch them. So it's like, yeah, definitely Captain.
Awesome. So if you wanted to give one last message to our audience out of everything that you've shared today, or something maybe that we haven't talked about, what would that be?
I would say get out of your own way. Stop comparing yourself to other people and get out of your own way. Because if you are not where you want to be and you're tripping up on the way getting there, chances are it's because you're focusing on too many small things that have to do with you. Like, I don't like this, or I'm scared. I am. I don't have this. I don't have that. Get out of your own way. Get out of the I am thinking, and really focus on the audience you want to impact, on the people you want to really make a difference for. And the vision and mission that you want to accomplish, and stay tuned into that and forget about everything else.
That's really important. How can people stay in touch with you, Adam?
I always joke that you look up Marketing God on the internet and I'm going to appear. Then I have to wake up, right? TheMarketingMentors.com, TheMarketingMentors.com. That's our main website. And if I could, I would love to hook up your audience with a special gift. And let's send them to themarketingmentors.com/millionaire woman, marketingmentors.com/millionaire woman. And I'm going to give you kind of a 10x bundle. It's a way to accelerate your revenue. It doesn't matter if you're starting out or if you're making $1 million. You're going to find ways to dramatically accelerate your revenue very, very quickly.
Thank you so much. I know that they're going to love it. And you shared so many fabulous nuggets. I know that there's lots of things here that people can take action with right now. And 10 minutes a day, that's all it's going to take. You just got to get some action.
Thanks for having me, Deborah.
You're very welcome. Everyone, that's a wrap for the Millionaire Woman Show. We'd love to hear any of the nuggets that you have found very valuable. Contact Adam Urbanski through the Millionaire Marketing Mentors. And also, you can go to my website at www.deborahkozowski.com and go on the contact page. You can download your free MP3 audio to the Surefire strategies to boost your productivity and performance. Go grab that. And Above all, be the change you wish to see in the world and make today great. Thanks for joining us on the show today.